Hello, and what's up, everybody? You're listening to the Introverted Nerd Watches. I am your host, Reese, and it's Throwback Thursday, so it's time to get into some more of that Saved by the Bell. And in this episode, I watched Season 4, Episode 5, Operation Zack. Okay, so if you've been paying attention, you know that I am going every other episode, skipping episodes because I'm saving all of the Malibu Sands episodes. I'm not exactly sure right now at which episode I'm going to stop, but there's a whole arc going on here. Or at least in my mind there is, and I want to do all of the Malibu Sands episodes together because if it'll feel like they got through a school year and then on to the summer. It's like fun Malibu Sands after the school year is over. That is all in my head. That is just something I made up, but I didn't want to do it the way that it aired because they stupidly aired like a regular school episode and then aired a Malibu Sands episode like right afterwards. So it was like they kept going back and forth. It's so ridiculous. If you're watching on Hulu, you know what the order is like. Ugh, I fucking hate you, Saved by the Bell. Like, why did you have to do this? Why couldn't you be like other shows and air shit in order? Like, come on. I shouldn't have to work this hard for Saved by the fucking Bell. Anyway. Welcome back, everybody. That was my rant for this episode. I'm sorry. I just get so frustrated. I shouldn't have to work this hard for Saved by the Bell. It's not that great a show. I love it, but it's not that great. So it should be as easy and as it just should be easier than this. I shouldn't have to do a whole lot of like research and shit about Saved by the Bell. We just want to watch it, right? It's Saved by the Bell. Anyway, if you're not completely turned off by my rant, you should do me a favor and subscribe to the podcast because I do this every week. Not just for Saved by the Bell, for other shows like right now I'm doing Fear the Walking Dead. That comes out every Tuesday. I reviewed the entire season of Black Lightning. And coming up, I'm going to be reviewing Cloak and Dagger. So you'll want to subscribe to the podcast so that you get all of the new episodes when they come out. And the podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, just wherever you get your podcasts. I am there. And while you're at wherever you get your podcasts, leave me a comment or a review. I know in Apple Podcasts you can leave a review. In Stitcher, I believe there's a different system. So just leave a review. I want to know like who's listening and if you're enjoying the show. So, and 5-star reviews, and that's only on Apple Podcasts, but 5-star reviews will be read on the podcast. So let's get into Operation Zack. And I'm going to read the synopsis from Hulu because it's just it's so ridiculous. The synopsis from Hulu says, right before a big basketball game, Mr. Belding runs into Zack and hurts his knee. Zack has to have surgery to repair torn cartilage. Lisa begins volunteering at the hospital. That's kind of true, but it's okay. Mr. Belding did not run into Zack. Zack ran into Mr. Belding. So we start this off in the height of ridiculousness. Zack is the captain of the basketball team. Since when? Like, really? Since when is Zack the captain of the basketball team? Since when does Zack play any sports? Slater is the sports guy. Slater is also on the basketball team. So Slater is a wrestler, a basketball player, and a football player so far. I don't know if he plays any other sports. Oh, and he runs track too. Oh, yeah, Zack ran track as well. So, okay, scratch that. He was an athlete before, but he run. Okay, Slater does 4 sports: track, football, wrestling, and basketball. Zack does 2. He's a cross country runner, or not? Is he cross country or a marathon runner or something like that? He's one of the runners that nobody cares about. I remember that much. And he's a basketball player. He's the star basketball player. Okay. Yeah. If you believe that. Oh my God. And really, like, what? Okay, how do these kids do any schoolwork at all? They run the school store. They run the school radio station. They all have jobs on that radio station. Slater is doing every sport that he can. He's playing every sport that he can play, and now Zack is playing. What do you do at Bayside? We see them take classes, but they cannot mean anything if they do everything but their schoolwork. Like, how do these kids have lives? How can they spend so much time at the goddamn max when they have all of these extracurricular activities? I don't understand. Anyway, Zack, right? Okay, like, the synopsis is correct. Before the basketball game, it's like a big basketball game against Valley, of course. They're in the locker for the pregame, and it's so funny. They have a tiny little basketball coach who's not really interested in being a coach. He's just Mr. Belding and the team with the coach are in the locker room, and Mr. Belding is waiting for the coach to give like this rousing speech before the big game. And the coach is like, yeah, guys, play well. And he tries to walk out. And that's when Mr. Belding decides to butt his ass in and is giving a long rambling speech that's not really getting anybody excited for anything. And Slater is basically standing there like that Judge Judy gif, like tapping his watch, like, come on, dude, it's time we have to go, like, shoot around. Is that what it's called? Shooting around? It's been a while since I watched a basketball game. I think it's called shooting around. I don't know sports, you guys, I'm sorry. But I know enough to know that this is not, these guys are not really that athletic. So the coach is a tiny, tiny little man. And in my head, okay, so my headcanon was that, how like in real basketball where there are actual tall guys that are like above like 6'5" or so. And the coach is he looks like a little tiny person next to all of these giants. And so my headcanon was that since these actors playing the basketball team aren't very tall, they had to get a really super short person to be the coach so that it was like the same proportion as if they were real actual athletic basketball players. But it turns out the coach is just a tiny little leprechaun man because Mr. Belding walks in and he's taller than everybody on the basketball team. It's so funny. Oh, I love that coach. He's the best. He doesn't give a shit about what's going on in his basketball game. Oh, so Mr. Belding, after he gives his speech and Slater like tries to usher them out of the locker room, Mr. Belding walks out first. Mr. Belding is out of the door before Zack. And then Zack, his clumsy ass, walks into Mr. Belding and does like the worst fall. And he falls and he grabs his knee, but I'm like, it doesn't even look like he got injured. They're not good at who's it? Mark Paul Gosselaar in particular is not good at pretending he hurt himself because he kind of walks into Mr. Belding, but not really. I don't even think they touched each other. They may have touched, but it doesn't really look like it. And then he falls like on the ground. Like he was scared to hurt himself if he fell. And I'm like, okay, I get it, but you're an actor, dude. Do better. And then he starts grabbing his knee, but he doesn't look like he's in any pain at all. He's saying that he twisted his knee, but he doesn't look like he's in any pain. So, but we have to believe it. So Zack is in pain and they rush him to the hospital. He thinks he only has a twisted knee. But it's worse than that. And Mr. Belding and Screech are the two people that go to the hospital with Zack. And I'm like, where are Zack's parents? His parents never show up. Neither one of them make an appearance in this episode. And it was so bizarre to me because his friends and Mr. Belding are constantly at the hospital. Not even his mom. Like, I would have expected his mom. I mean, we know his dad, like, can't be bothered, like, really, unless Zack told him, like, hey, come to the hospital, I'm hurt, and you could probably sell some computers here, then Derek Morris might have shown up. But, you know, in any other case, he's not showing up. He doesn't have time for that. He's got his giant cell phone. He has to sell computers in other places. But Mrs. Morris, like, I don't even know. Have we seen her yet? If we have seen her, it's been a while. And if we haven't, I don't remember. Anyway, but she doesn't show up either. So Zack has zero parents. He's stuck with Screech and Mr. Belding. And Screech is all about that money. I was like, okay, so Dustin Diamond, is Jewish. But I don't think he's Jewish on the show. They actually say he's Protestant, but in my I'm like, I didn't even go with that. Like in my head, Screech is Jewish. So they have Screech. The only thing he's doing in this entire episode is talking about how much money Zack can get from Mr. Belding for Mr. Belding, like injuring him. He tells Zack not to talk to Mr. Belding because he's going to call his uncle Shyster to be his lawyer. I'm like, really? We give the Jewish kid an uncle named Shyster? Really? It's like, are you trying to be offensive, Saved by the Bell writers? Are you really like Shyster, the Jewish kid with an uncle named Shyster? Okay. Okay, I'm going to keep moving because this will just make me upset. So Lisa is at the hospital as a candy striper, and I wanted to know, are candy stripers still a thing? I don't think candy stripers are still a thing because I know people that volunteer at hospitals and they just wear their regular clothes and they wear like a vest or jacket or something that says that they're hospital volunteers. So candy stripers, why were they ever a thing? And could they only be girls? Because that's okay. I'm going way back here. Lisa on this show and Jessica and Elizabeth Wakefield on Sweet Valley High, the TV show, if anybody has seen that terrible, terrible show, are the only two shows I know of where people are candy stripers. And I don't know why that is just a random thought for me, but Sweet Valley High, go and watch that show. It is terrible. They have episode, just search on YouTube. They have like all of those episodes on YouTube. So don't pay for that show. I don't even know if you can pay for that show. It was terrible. But anyway, Lisa is a volunteer. Lisa's mom and we find out Lisa's mom and dad are doctors. So Lisa is rolling in that money. She is so rich. You know, I knew Lisa's mom was a doctor. I didn't remember, or maybe it's not even said that her dad is a doctor until this episode, but Lisa has so much goddamn money. Oh, I love her. And her mom forces her to volunteer, and her mom is like the whole thing in this episode is that Lisa is a lot like her mom. And Lisa's super like, she code switches. Is it code switching in this episode? Well, I'll call it code switching, but it's a lot of the black girl, like neck roll, like attitude type thing. And not that I'm complaining, but I like that Lisa. I want more of Lisa. That's the only thing I want. Like, why can't I have that? Why can't I have more of the Lisa that I love? You know, this spoiled, rich little black girl who wears who has her fingernails match her candy striper dress and her cute hair like up in a ponytail. Like Lisa was peak Lisa in this episode, and I loved her a whole lot. And I was like totally shipping Lisa and Zack in this episode. I got total vibes from them, total like relationship vibes. With Lisa and Zack talking to each other. It's at the end of the episode, but maybe it's just my shipper heart, and maybe it's just like future knowledge that I have, but I totally saw in this episode. I don't know why they waited so long to get Zack and Lisa together, because they totally have chemistry. We missed out. We missed out with all this Zack and Kelly bullshit. Like, they're not even like, I was like bummed out when Zack and Kelly broke up, but like just thinking about it, it's like they weren't that great. And Lisa had like Lisa. Okay, hot take. I think Lisa is better looking than Kelly, and I think Lisa and Zack should have been together. But Zack is like really terrible, so I don't want to like condemn my girl to that. So Kelly's welcome to him, because Zack is awful. He's a narcissistic piece of shit. So maybe Lisa just like, maybe she just could have like hooked up with him and then moved on with the rest of her life to somebody like richer and better than Zack. My new headcanon. Lisa and Zack were together for a little while. It was really cute. And then they move on from each other, and Lisa gets together with Lisa marries Prince Harry. Basically, Lisa becomes a princess and becomes wonderful. And she's, you know, a member of the royal family, and she has beautiful royal babies. That was a big tangent for no reason other than I love Lisa Turtle. So Zack is in the hospital, and he guilts Mr. Belding into taking his math. He has a math test coming up with Mr. Dewey, and he guilts Mr. Belding into taking his math test. And it's like, Mr. Belding is like on the verge of tears. He is freaking the fuck out. Like, he's scared of Uncle Shyster coming. He's really like, he fucked up. Because we have to believe that Zack is the star basketball player. So, the thing is, it's like, I don't know how big basketball is at Bayside, but I'm thinking of like other places where sports, like high school sports, are a really big deal. And if you're the principal that like fucked up the star athlete student, yeah, you need security or something. Like if you were in Texas, where football is really big, and you like fuck up the star football player, you just better stay in your house. You need like Secret Service, like year round, all like 24/7. I guess Bayside isn't like that, but Screech is on his ass a lot. But Mr. Belding is like freaking out, and it's like, Mr. Belding, you're the principal. You could just postpone all of the shit that Zack has to do. He has to take a French test and a math test. You don't go and study to take his French and math tests. You tell the French teacher and tell Mr. Dewey, the math teacher, that this student is injured and he needs you have to put all of his work on hold. He'll be back and he'll catch up on his work. Like, stop it, Mr. Belding. I was about to say you're smarter than this, but he keeps proving over and over again that my faith in him is misplaced. So Zack is a real player. And oh, by the way, Zack and Kelly are cool in this episode. They're friends. They're hanging out together. No tension at all. So I don't know like where this actually falls in the breakup type thing, because Jeff isn't even mentioned in this episode. So I don't know the status of said relationship in this episode, but they're cool. So everything's fine. The aftermath Like after that, the last episode, the aftermath, shit is just cool with Zach and Kelly, and they're being like mature friends about it. And I was wrong. um, their friend group could survive, so whatevs. So after Mr. Belding like leaves crying, um, Zach is in a room. He has who was it? Lisa's mom is his doctor, which is a whole like conflict of interest type thing. You know, this is your kid, one of your kid's best friend, and you're a surgeon and you're going to be his doctor and operating on him. No, Dr. Turtle, no. But that is what's going to happen in this episode. So she says she wants Zach to stay overnight for a knee injury. I'm like, what is the okay? See, I keep getting sidetracked over all the stupid shit that's going on because I can't even take any of this seriously. Like I usually can take Saved by the Bell seriously, but I mean, you know. Anyway, Zach is staying overnight at the hospital so she can do tests or whatever. And then he is flirting with all the nurses, and the nurses are flirting back with him. These are adult women who have degrees, who are nurses, who have passed the nurses test. They are at least in their 20s. Zach is 16 years old, and they are flirting with him. And I'm like, what? They are seriously flirting with him. Like one nurse is in there giving him neck massages and everything. And okay. And they're also wearing these super short dresses. They're all wearing white, of course, because they're nurses and nurses wear white. And they have the dresses on, and they have on the nurses caps. It's like, what is this? The 1940s? Like who did anybody really wear those nursing caps? This is the 90s when this episode takes place. Like was anybody it aired on September 28th, 1991. Was anybody wearing those nursing caps that all of these nurses, it's like a porno. It really is like the sexy nurse porno type thing. Oh, really? Saved by the Bell, stop it. So they're flirting with him, and I'm like, adult women, nurses, like, what are you doing flirting with this child? Take a step back and stop this madness. It's so crazy because, and they know he's flirting and they're flirting back with him. That's what I don't understand. It would be one thing if Zach was just like shamelessly flirting with all of these nurses, but the fact that they indulge him and sort of and reciprocate is like, no, that ain't cute. It's not cute. It's not funny or cute or anything. I was like, ew. He's a student. So after everybody leaves Zach at the hospital, Mr. Belding is actually studying for Zach's test. He's like sitting in the max, studying for the test and everything. It's ridiculous. So Zach finds out he has to have surgery. That's what Dr. Turtle tells him. He has to have a minor little knee surgery, and you know, he's not happy about it. And so his friends are okay, they do the thing where somebody tries to operate the bed. It's Screech, of course. He tries to operate the bed, or not even tries to operate the bed. He tries to turn on the television with the remote control, and he inadvertently picks up the bed remote control, and it's the thing where the bed like keeps jerking about, and then the person is injured, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, okay, this really got on my nerves because it's like, okay, the remote for the television would never be confused for the control for the bed, 1. And 2, even if you do have like touch the control for the bed, like why would you get why would you have a control for a bed for sick patients that would be this, that will work this crazily? Like, you would never have something like that, especially at a hospital. Like in a hospital where people are sick and like dying, and um malpractice is a thing. You have a bed that could injure or kill somebody, and see, I'm starting to take it too seriously. But I've worked in the hospital and I know, and the bed thing just always, like the bed thing, it can never be funny to me ever again. Like shows like in the 90s, 80s, 90s, like older shows used to do this all the time, where there was always somebody who would pick up the remote control thinking it was the television remote, and it would control the bed and it would just make the bed all wonky. But it's like I can't even entertain that because it's so stupid. Especially since I worked in a hospital. It's like, no, I can't do it. I'm just like, I was, at this point in the episode, I was like sitting there with my arms crossed, like, really, Saved by the Bell, this is what we're doing. And I remember this episode from when I was a kid. It was never one of my favorites, so maybe that's also why I just couldn't get into it. So Zack is all freaked out by the operation that he's about to have, and he has a nightmare, and it's a nightmare because he's in it, and then Screech shows up, and Screech is supposed to be like an angel, so that's my nightmare. And Screech takes him to school. He like teleports him to the school, and in the nightmare, Zack is dead, and everybody at school is like, they're doing like a funeral processional, like through the hallways of the school to his locker. And I'm like, Zack, even in his nightmares, is so fucking narcissistic. Like, really? Everybody at school is wearing black and they're mourning him. Like, I don't doubt that everybody, like, that students would be sad about his death, but Zack, to me, Zack is like the Joffrey of Bayside. So like, I imagine when he died, it has to be some Joffrey shit, like nobody cares except his mother. His mother is standing there crying, and then who is it, who's the Tywin of Bayside? Mr. Belding. Mr. Belding would be the Tywin Lannister of Bayside, who just walks up to another student and is like, come over here. Let me teach you something, kid. But so Zack is like, everybody's mourning. The cheerleaders are doing sad cheers. The nerds are mourning the fact that he won't be there to give them noogies anymore. And Mr. Belding is crying. Screech is. Oh, they're going to retire Zack's, is this a dream or a nightmare? Because they're going to retire Zack's locker in this, Zack's dream nightmare thing. And Screech, does the equivalent of jumping on the casket, and he refuses to let them close down the locker without him in it. So, it's a whole thing. Zack wakes up from that and is like, okay, fuck this surgery shit. I'm getting out of here. And he steals some scrubs. I don't know where a patient with Zack can barely walk. So I don't know how he was able to walk around to find scrubs, put them on, and then start walking around the hospital trying to get out. So, okay, this hospital is terrible. If you were ever in this I don't know, I was about to call it Bayside Hospital, but if you're in this hospital, stay, get out of here, because Zack sees a nurse. A nurse stops him in the hall thinking that he's a doctor. And she's like, doctor, I need your help with a patient that has a fever. And Zack tells her, I can't talk. I'm going to surgery. I have to I have to take out somebody's neck. And it's like, what? Zack, you're a liar. That's all you do is lie. And you can't think of a better lie than I'm going to take out someone's neck. He makes up a word. He says he has to do a neck a nectarectomy or something he calls it. And even after he says this ridiculous thing about a nectarectomy, taking out somebody's neck, the nurse continues to talk to him, about the patient that needs help. And it's like, girl, like she looked at him like what he said was ridiculous, but then she continued to talk to him. And it's like, you don't even know this guy. He has a mask on and everything, and you're just walking up to random doctors asking them about your patient. Stop it. So she tells him about her patient that has a fever, and he tells her to put the patient next to someone with a cold so that'll cool them down. And he continues through the hallway, and there's another nurse, an old woman nurse, who basically molests Zack. She, oh my God, this old woman. So this old woman stops Zack in the hallway. Now, even with the mask on, Zack looks like a young man. He looks like a young doctor, if you believe he's a doctor just because he has scrubs on, but he looks like a young guy. The nurse stops him like she recognizes him and knows him. And he tries to pull away. He says he has to leave. But she says, no, doctor, you can't leave. And she's rubbing herself and she's trying to be quote unquote sexy. But she's like, you can't leave without giving me your healing kiss. And she pulls him in a room, and we hear the sound of the her kissing all over him. But it's like, really? And she does this in the hallway. There's like, if you're like a nurse that's fucking a doctor, do you step out in the hallway and like pull him into a room with the open door to kiss him? Anyway, Zack gets caught before he can even get out of the hospital, before he can even get off the floor. Dr. Turtle sees him and is like, get your ass back to your room, Zack. Like, you're having a surgery. Stop it. If his parents actually showed up and were being like good parents, this wouldn't even been a thing, because they would have kept Zack in his room and like comforted him. Like, you comfort your child before he has surgery. Like, right? He's 16. Like, Zack is a monster, but I mean, his parents have to pretend to care, right? They have to pretend to care like a tiny little bit. So he, after he gets called by the doctor, he gets taken back to his room, and he has a talk with Lisa. And this is the moment where I was like, I'm totally shipping them. Now, I know it's going to be a while before, spoiler, they like kiss and hook up or whatever, but I'm still like really, they were just giving me like romance vibes, like all over. I was like totally shipping them. So I need to go find some Zack and Lisa fan fiction. Have to go to AO3 and see if they have any Lisa and Zack fan fiction, because I'm totally into it. So they reminisce about their the time that they were both in the hospital at 9 from some, I wasn't even paying attention really. It was some ice skating accident. Zack sprained his ankle. I don't know what happened to Lisa. All she said was that she fell on her butt, and they both got rushed to the hospital. Like, what are we doing rushing people to, like, they were in the ambulance and everything. Like, I assume their parents were with them, and their parents had cars. So what are we doing rushing kids to the hospital for a sprained ankle? Like, and Lisa's mom is a doctor. Well, like, what are we doing? Like, we're wasting a ton of money. Like, it costs money to get an ambulance to come. You have to pay for that shit. Whatever. They're rich. It doesn't matter. So, Lisa is like praying for Zack, and he goes to sleep. Like, he's barely asleep. He's barely asleep for 2 seconds. And she's like, she holds his hand and it's like, please God, make sure my friend is okay. And it's like, is that really what you want to say in front of the guy who was just trying to sneak out of the hospital, to get away from this because he was scared. And you're like two seconds after he closes his eyes, you're praying for him. Like, you're praying that he doesn't die. Like, really, Lisa? Great bedside manner you have there. So Zack gets out of surgery. Everything is fine, of course. And everybody's there, they're signing his cast, and Kelly signs it, and she draws kittens, and she's a nice person again. And she even gives him a neck massage. Like, he couldn't get one of his the nurses that he has around. So Kelly offers to give him the neck massage. And then okay, let me talk about Mr. Belding first. So Mr. Belding comes in, and he comes in like he's a child that just that knows that he fucked up, and he's about to get scolded by his parents, because he comes in and he's like, Zack, I'm really sorry, but Mr. Dewey gave me a C on your math test. And Zack is like, well, you go back to Mr. Dewey and you tell him that you want a do-over. And it's like, what? Okay, I get it, Zack. We're going to pretend that Mr. Belding is the one that actually hurt you. And we're going to let you have a little bit of this anger or, whatever that you have at him. But Mr. Belding should be like, okay, kid, this was cute for a second. I'm sorry that your knee is hurt. I hope you're okay, but I'm not doing your fucking homework. I'm the goddamn principal, and I'm an adult, so I'm not doing your homework. And you're the principal. Why didn't you just once again go to the teacher and tell them that Zack needs an extension? That's all you had to fucking do, Mr. Belding. He's out here he's out here letting Mr. Dewey give him math tests and shit. Like, oh, come on, Mr. Belding. So Lisa comes in, and Lisa actually makes the comment that she helped wrap Zack's cast that he has on his leg now. And it's like, hold on a second. Time out, Dr. Turtle. Are we really letting the fucking candy stripers help put on casts for patients now? Like, there are all types of violations in this. First of all, Lisa is a child herself. She is 16 years old too. Like, what are we doing here? Oh, I was like, see, this is why you really need to stay away from this Bayside hospital. You got to stay away from here. It is not a safe place. Students, children being molested. You have this is a child. This is child slaves. They're working these kids. Lisa's supposed to be volunteering, but they have her doing actual medical work. Come on. So everything is cool. Zack is going to be fine. And Lisa will never be a candy striper again. I don't think. I might be wrong though. I don't think Zack will ever play basketball again. Yeah, I don't even think this basketball thing will ever be mentioned again. I'm speaking out of my ass now because I don't even remember, but everything is fine. Jesse and Slater are still together. Screech is still the worst. And I want Lisa and Zack to get together. The end. So that was Operation Zack. It was not a great episode. I didn't love it, and I couldn't enjoy it because I have too much information about how actual hospitals work, so I can't I couldn't even enjoy it. That's my own stupid fault, but this was it was not a great episode anyway. So the next episode is season 4, episode 7. Check your mate. That's obviously a chess episode. Yeah, it's a chess episode. So that's what's happening next week. What else is coming up on the podcast? Oh, I'm doing Cloak and Dagger. The new season starts on June 7th. I believe June 7th is a Thursday. And what I'm planning that's a Thursday. June 7th is a Thursday. So that first episode is going to be it comes on Freeform. And since that's a Thursday, I'm thinking I'm going to release the episode, the podcast on Saturday. So yeah, that's the plan. And Fear the Walking Dead is still going to be on Tuesdays, but there's only 3 episodes left in this half season. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put out a sort of a Cloak and Dagger primer is the plan. I'm reading Cloak and Dagger right now because I wanted to have like knowledge of I didn't know a whole lot about Cloak and Dagger, so I wanted to have a little bit of knowledge about them. So I've been reading the Cloak and Dagger comic books. Um and I'm just going to do a little primer about who Cloak and Dagger are in the comics, and it's not going to be any spoilers because I have no idea what's going to happen on the show. I've been trying to stay away from anything that might be a little bit of spoilery, because I didn't, obviously I don't want to be spoiled, and I want to just go in like really fresh for the TV show. So I don't know when that episode is going to come out. It's going to come out before the 7th. There's a week when Fear the Walking Dead won't be on before the mid-season finale. So it's going to be out on that week. It's going to be out in place of Fear the Walking Dead. So what else? That's it until the next episode is going to be on Tuesday. The next episode of Fear the Walking Dead is going to be on Tuesday. And you can follow me on social media. We can talk to each other. You can follow the podcast at NerdTrovertPod. Use the hashtag NerdyRead, and I will, Nerdy Watch and Nerdy Watch or Nerdy Read, and we can talk to each other about what I'm watching and what I'm reading. I live tweet Fear the Walking Dead every Sunday. I'm going to be live tweeting Cloak and Dagger too. So join me at NerdTrovertPod, and we can talk to each other. You can follow me personally on Twitter at the Ms. Introvert, and on Facebook. You can like the Facebook page at facebook.com/theintrovertednerd, and I'm at the Introverted Nerd on Instagram as well. And you can send me feedback if you want to, send feedback about Cloak and Dagger coming up, or Fear the Walking Dead, and even Saved by the Bell. I don't know what you could have to say about Saved by the Bell, but if you have anything to say about it, email me at theintrovertednerd@gmail.com, and we'll talk about it. So until the next episode, people, later.